Absolutely. Settle in. What you're about to hear is a tale steeped in shadows, betrayal, and the slow, suffocating unraveling of trust. A noir-tinged narrative that stalks the narrow halls of suspicion and ends where you'd least expect. Caught. My cheating wife at her secret hotel. A tale of deceit, double lives, and the price of truth. Prologue. The hollowed silence. I always thought silence was peace, until I lived in a house filled with it. Her name was Rachel, my wife of 9 years, a woman with a voice like velvet and a smile that could make saints second-guess their vows. We had laughter once, but it had vanished, replaced by hushed phone, calls, hidden texts, and a perfume that lingered too long after midnight outings. Then came the dreams, vivid, restless, the same name on her lips, Ethan. I wasn't Ethan. Chapter 1. The Watcher in Room 214. It started with a gut feeling and a forgotten receipt. I found it wedged in her coat pocket one morning. The Langston, a boutique hotel tucked into the less traveled streets of the city. Room 214, a single-night booking, Tuesday. When I confronted her, Rachel was calm, too calm. Said it was a surprise, spa retreat for me, a gift for our anniversary. We'd missed our last anniversary. She said she had food poisoning, so I waited. Tuesday came, and I followed her. Chapter 2. The Man in the Elevator. I watched from the hotel lobby's cafe, half buried behind a newspaper like some cliché in a dime store detective novel. But it worked. She stepped through the glass doors. Around 5:43 p.m., hair done up, lips cherry red, that same damn perfume. She wasn't alone. He was tall, tailored suit, graying at the temples, maybe 10 years older. He didn't touch her, not there in public. But their silence as they walked, side by side, said everything. They took the elevator. Room 214. I took the stairs. Chapter 3. Voices behind walls. I pressed my ear to the wall adjacent to 214, an unoccupied room I bribed a desk clerk to give me. Heard laughter, clinking glasses. Her voice, sultry, low, and unfamiliar. A version of her I hadn't known in years. I recorded it all, not for evidence, just to believe it. Then I heard my name. He suspects nothing, poor Jack. Still thinks I go to Pilates. You're cruel, the man laughed. Cruel is staying in a marriage you've already buried. Chapter 4. A Meeting with Shadows. I didn't burst in. That's not how I work. I waited 2 more weeks. Hired someone. A PI named Lorraine Chase, ex-cop, razor-sharp, emotionally detached. She dug through emails, bank accounts, burner phones. Turns out Ethan was Daniel Cross, CEO of the company where Rachel once worked. And still worked, despite saying she'd quit last year. She had a secret bank account. He wired money into it. Thousands. Regularly. Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was building an exit plan. Chapter 5. The setup. I made a reservation at the EA Langston, room 214. Left a message from a burner phone pretending to be Daniel. Same room, same time. One last time before we vanish. I waited. And she came. Alone. Dressed like the first time I saw her, full of hope and lust and deception. When she opened the door, she didn't see Daniel. She saw me. "Hello, Rachel," I said, camera in hand, truth in my eyes. Funny how the past few months fit inside one small hotel room. Chapter 6. The unraveling at first, she gasped. Then her face hardened like stone. "So this is what you want? A confrontation? You think you're some kind of hero?" "No," I said. "I'm a man who thought he knew his wife." She tried to twist the narrative. Said Daniel was obsessed. Said she was the victim, but she didn't know I'd already spoken to Daniel, and Lorraine had recorded their calls. Calls where she planned to blackmail him, take everything and vanish before the year ended. She wasn't cheating. She was conspiring. Chapter 7. The twist in the mirror: I didn't file for divorce. Not right away. Instead, I played along. Let her believe I'd forgiven her. I fed her kindness like bait. Let her return to her games. Let her slip up. And she did. 3 weeks later, I had every piece of proof I needed. Not just for adultery, but for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. Turns out, Daniel had a wife too. A powerful one. With influence. When I delivered the files, she didn't flinch. She made a call. Rachel was arrested 2 nights later. Not for cheating, but for trying to blackmail her boss using falsified harassment claims and siphoning corporate funds. Epilogue. Room 214, the Langston closed down a few months later. Fire in the kitchen, they said. But I think some places just know when their stories are over. Rachel's trial was swift. Daniel testified. So did I. She'll be gone for a while. As for me, I left the house, took nothing but a suitcase and my name, started writing again. And every time I hear silence now, I smile, because sometimes silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the absence of lies. A continuation of secrets, manipulation, and the poison of unfinished revenge. Chapter 1. Letters that shouldn't exist. 3 months after Rachel's sentencing, I moved into a smaller place. Quiet suburb, no shared memories clinging to the walls. The air was clearer, or so I thought. Then the first letter arrived. No name on the envelope, just my new address, one I never gave her. Inside, a short note, typed, no signature. Truth is relative, Jack. You played your part well, but the curtain never really falls. Attached was a photo of me, taken from across the street, drinking coffee by my window. Chapter 2. The warden's wink eye drove 3 hours to the penitentiary, showed the letter to the guards, the warden, anyone who would listen. They all said the same thing. Rachel's in solitary. No visitation, no male privileges. Her rights are suspended pending further charges. How the hell is she sending me photos? I asked. The warden didn't blink, just smirked. Sometimes people like her. They have friends. Chapter 3. Lorraine's warning. I called Lorraine. Chase. Did you burn everything? She asked, lighting a cigarette on the other end. Everything. Then someone's still watching you. She started digging again. Bank accounts, known associates, inmate call logs. What she found turned the pit in my stomach into a crater. Rachel was never working alone. There was a second account. Money flowing into it from someone named G. Avery, a name linked to an offshore tech shell company, the same company Rachel transferred funds to before her arrest. Lorraine's voice dropped to a whisper. This wasn't just about cheating, Jack. You married into a con. Chapter 4. A visitor at midnight. It was around 2:12 a.m. when I heard it. 3 soft knocks on my door. I didn't open it, but someone slid something under the frame. A Polaroid photo. Rachel. In a hallway, not in prison. In heels. Wearing the same red dress from room 214, on the back, in black ink. Did you really think that place was a prison? Chapter 5. The escape. That wasn't. Lorraine found the truth 2 days later. Rachel hadn't escaped. She was still in her cell. Still in solitary. But that photo? It was real. Just old. Dated. Time-stamped from a hotel surveillance archive that should have been long erased. That's when Lorraine said something that chilled me. She's not reaching out from inside. Someone's doing it for her. Who? I asked. Someone who wants you to suffer just enough to chase answers. Someone patient and personal. Chapter 6. The Man from Room 216. While going through the Langston's old employee logs, Lorraine found a name flagged by security multiple times before the fire: Gideon Avery, same last name as the offshore account. He wasn't a guest. He worked, security detail, and 2 days before Rachel's arrest, he vanished. No resignation, no forwarding address. Guess what room he stayed in after each shift? 16. Right next to Rachel's room. Always. Chapter 7. Web of Smoke. Rachel wasn't seducing Daniel for money. She was working for Gideon. Daniel was the mark. Wealthy, vulnerable, with skeletons he didn't want seen. Rachel seduced him, blackmailed him, and siphoned corporate secrets to Gideon. Rachel's betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was professional, and I was the cover story. The devoted husband, the distraction, the plausible alibi. I was never supposed to dig this deep. Chapter 8. Gideon's Voice. The last twist came not in a letter, not in a photo, but a phone call, burner number. I answered out of instinct. "Jack," a deep voice rasped. "You were never meant to be in this story, but you kept turning pages." I froze. "Gideon? You're good, but not good enough." "Where is she?" "Exactly where she wants to be." Click Epilogue. The real prison. Rachel remains behind bars, but Gideon, he's out there, tying loose ends, pulling strings. And me? I'm watching my back, changing my number, sleeping with a bat under the bed, because some betrayals don't end in handcuffs. Some stories keep breathing, and the worst part? I still dream of her smile. A continuation where shadows speak louder than confessions, and not every ghost is dead. Chapter 1. The Burned Flash. Drive Lorraine called at 3:34 a.m. "I found something in the Langston fire investigation files. You need to see this." I met her in the back corner of a shuttered cafe 2 towns over. She slid a fireproof bag across the table. Inside, a half-melted USB drive. "Found near room 214, she said. "Fire marshals logged it. Never turned it over to police. You're not going to believe what's on it." We cracked it open at her office. Dozens of video clips. Hidden camera footage. All from inside room 214. Different men, different dates. One constant, Rachel. Wearing the same smile that once told me she loved me. Chapter 2. A name I shouldn't know. One of the clips was different. Rachel wasn't alone with a client. She was with Gideon, talking to him in hushed tones. And then at the 0223 mark, she said a name that shouldn't have meant anything, but it hit me like a fist. "He doesn't suspect anything, Gideon. Jack still thinks I'm trying to fix our marriage. He thinks I'm staying late to close real estate deals for Hollis Global." Hollis Global, my late father's company. The one I inherited after the accident. The one I sold 6 years ago after Rachel convinced me it was draining me. Chapter 3. The blueprint for Ruin Lorraine cross-referenced Hollis Global's final year of operations. Guess what she found? Massive data leaks, false compliance certifications. Shell company deals with, yes, Gideon's name on a consultant ledger. Rachel hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She had dismantled the company from inside, then steered me to sell it for pennies, to a firm now linked to Gideon. My father built that empire from scratch. Rachel sold it like a pawned wedding ring. Chapter 4. Letters. From the inside. A week later, a letter arrived. Handwritten this time. No envelope. Slipped into my mailbox at night. Rachel's handwriting. "You were never meant to know, but you were always meant to survive." R. Lorraine confirmed it. Rachel's handwriting verified against court forms. but prison surveillance showed no mail, no movement, no contact. So who delivered it? Chapter 5. The Woman in Gray. I started watching. Night after night. Then I saw her, middle-aged, silver scarf, walked with a limp. She'd circle my block once, pause outside my house, then disappear into the fog. The third night I followed her. She led me to a diner on the edge of town. Sat in a booth. Didn't order a thing. Just waited. I approached. "You dropped this," I said, holding out the letter. She smiled, bitter and tired. "Rachel saved my life once. That doesn't make her a good person, but it makes her mine." "Who are you?" "Her sister." Chapter 6. The pact. Her name was Eliza Marrow. She wasn't in any of Rachel's legal records. No birth certificate, no contact. Technically, she didn't exist, but she had stories. Stories about Rachel's childhood, abandonment, a con artist mother, a father who disappeared. Rachel learned survival by selling truth like a product. Eliza told me something else, too. She did love you, Jack. In her own way. But love never stood a chance against survival. And then she asked me something I didn't expect. "Help me get her out." I laughed, but she wasn't joking. "Not for her, for you. Because Gideon isn't done, and Rachel is the only one who knows how to beat him." Chapter 7. Trust. No one Lorraine thought I was losing it. "You want to break her out? Jack, this isn't a thriller. It's real life. She used you." "Yeah," I said, "but maybe this time I use her." Lorraine leaned forward, dead serious. "If you do this, you better be damn sure you're not playing the wrong side's game." Chapter 8. The Foxhole Pact. I met Eliza again, and together we started planning, not an escape, a transfer. We'd find a way to get Rachel into a less secure facility under medical pretense. Eliza had connections, I had cash, and secrets. But it wasn't about mercy. It was about bait, because Gideon had vanished after the last call. No trace, no digital trail. But if we moved Rachel, he'd show his hand. Chapter 9. The game begins. 2 weeks later, Rachel was transferred to a psychiatric wing, secure but vulnerable. We made it public, leaked it to one of Lorraine's old journalist contacts, and just like that, another letter. "She's not your weapon, she's your curse, but if you're ready, meet me at the ruins of room 214, midnight. Come alone." Signed, G.A. The hotel had been condemned, a skeleton now, scorched walls, exposed wires like veins through decaying plaster. The wind whistled through shattered windows, moaning like something left behind. Room 214 barely stood. I parked 2 blocks away. Walked in with nothing but a burner phone, a pen light, and a recorder stitched into the lining of my coat. Lorraine didn't know. Eliza didn't know. No backup. I needed to face him, alone, just like he asked. At exactly midnight, he stepped. Through the hole in the far wall, Gideon Ashcroft, same cold eyes, grayer at the temples. He wore a tailored coat and gloves that didn't suit the burned-out ruin around him. "You came. I wasn't sure you had the stomach anymore." "You said you wanted to talk. Start talking." He looked around. "You know, this place wasn't just her secret hotel. It was a vault. This room, it held meetings you wouldn't believe. Politicians, executives. What Rachel ran here wasn't an affair, it was a market. Blackmail, intel, leverage. You weren't her only blind spot, Jack, just her softest one." Chapter 2. The Deal. Beneath the bed frame, he reached into a half-collapsed bed frame and pulled out a rusted tin box. Inside, charred documents, hard drives, 1 leather notebook, mostly intact. "This is what's left of her empire. Names, codes, connections, yours included. I burned this. And no one comes looking for her. Not Interpol, not private eyes, not you. And if I take it, then you own what she built. You inherit her sins. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if the knock at your door is the FBI or a dead man walking. I stared at the box. The pages inside had scribbles that looked familiar, passwords she used, my initials in margins. A ledger with transactions under my name for things I never bought. She'd framed me once. Maybe this was the blueprint. "What do you want, Gideon?" He smiled. "Same as always. Leverage." He stepped forward, calm, confident. "You're going to disappear, Jack. You're going to leave Rachel in that facility and never speak her name again. You'll resign from Hollis Legacy Trust and sign over any remaining assets. Or..." He opened the leather notebook to a photo taped inside. Me, holding my son. Rachel never told me she'd kept that photo, or who took it. "I show the world what your hands really did for Hollis Global. Whether it was you or her won't matter. You're both radioactive." Chapter 3. The voice in the ashes. Then, a voice behind him. "Still spinning your little plays, Gideon? You've always loved a monologue." Rachel, hair shorter, eyes harder, wearing gray prison fatigues beneath a coat too big for her. He spun, furious. "You were supposed to be..." "What? Drugged in a psych ward?" "I signed myself out hours ago. Involuntary holds don't work when you know the attending's gambling secrets." She stepped past him, picked up the tin box, and looked at me. "He's not lying, Jack. About the blackmail. About the room. About the things I did." "But he's bluffing. The real file? The one that could burn him down? That's not here." "Where is it?" She smiled. "I didn't survive this. Long by keeping all my secrets in one place." Chapter 4. The tipping point. Gideon lunged for the box. Rachel tossed it into the fire pit in the corner, the same one from the fire report Lorraine gave me. Flames leapt instantly. "Are you insane?" Gideon shouted. "It's all digital." "Darling, that was just theater." Suddenly I understood. This wasn't a confrontation. It was bait. Rachel hadn't come to plead or reconcile. She came to burn the last breadcrumb and push Gideon into the open. He reached into his coat, a flash of metal. But before he could aim, Rachel stepped close and whispered something that froze him. "Your name's already in the ledger, Gideon. And so is your offshore account. You shoot me now, and that dead man walking, it's going to be you." He backed off, stormed out through the back wall. Gone. Just like that. Chapter 5. The Pact Rewritten. We stood in silence. The fire crackled. Smoke rose through the roofless ceiling into the stars. "Why now, Rachel?" I asked. "Because I knew he'd come for you. Because you needed to see what this world really was. And because, like it or not, we're still tied together. You think we're allies?" She turned, finally meeting my eyes. "No. I think we're the only ones who can bury this. Together. Then we walk away. For good." Chapter 6. The new target back in Lorraine's office. I played her the recordings. She didn't say a word for a long time. Then, "You realize what this means?" "Yeah," I said. "We're in deeper than ever." "So what's next?" I looked out the rain-covered window, lit a cigarette, and thought about Gideon, where he'd run, who he'd take down to stay standing. "Next," I said, "we find the original file, the real one. Rachel has part of it. But someone else does too." I turned to Lorraine. "You ever heard the name Sebastian Vale?" Her eyes went wide. "You're serious?" Rain tapped the rooftop of Lorraine's office like a warning. "Sebastian Vale," she said again, almost to herself. "The ghost. The phantom investor. You realize if he's involved, Jack, you're not chasing revenge anymore. You're chasing the man who built the board you've been played on." I didn't flinch. Then I need to find where the first piece was placed. She walked over to the bookshelf and pulled out an old leather folder. Project Halcyon. The words were barely visible on the faded tab. Lorraine opened it, revealing a tangle of wire transfers, real estate purchases under shell companies, and a scanned photo. Black and white. Blurry, but clear enough. Sebastian Vale stood between a younger Gideon and an unrecognizable Rachel. Where was this taken? Bucharest, 2009. Right before the fire that took out the Iris complex. You won't find that in any public record. This is deep cover intel. Rachel's involvement wasn't just about blackmail. They were laundering secrets, using the hotels as trade stations. I sat back. My mind reeled. What kind of secrets? Defense contractors, election influence, human leverage. Vale isn't just a financier, Jack. He's a collector of power. And if Rachel crossed him, then you're not just in danger. You're a liability. Chapter 2. A Voice. From the ice, that night, I received a burner call. Blocked ID. Rachel's voice low and tense. He knows you're looking. You need to stop. You mean Vale? Yes. You don't find him. He finds you. That's the rule. Then I'll break it. Silence on the line. Then, soft, like a confession. He was the first one to ever own me, Jack, and the only one I never escaped. Click. The line went dead. Chapter 3. The book of Ivy Lorraine and I tracked a lead to Geneva where one of Vale's shell firms, Ivy Holdings, had a dormant bank box. Inside, not cash, not gold, just a single drive, encrypted. But Lorraine cracked it by cross-referencing old password patterns Rachel once used in college. What it held made my blood freeze. Photos, videos, signed affidavits. Gideon and Rachel weren't. The only players. Names we recognized, a U.S. senator, a royal family's black sheep cousin, 3 board members of Hollis Global, and a classified file labeled J. Voss, asset conversion candidate. That was me. They had built a profile on me. Years ago. You were never just collateral, Lorraine whispered. You were groomed, positioned, married to Rachel for a reason. And suddenly it clicked. Rachel didn't cheat because she was bored. She cheated because I had served my use. Chapter 4. Face to Shadow. 2 days later, I received a handwritten note at my hotel door in Geneva. No return name, no fingerprints, just one line. Villa Noire. Montreux. Come alone. Lorraine. Begged me not to go. I didn't listen. Chapter 5. The man in the mirror room Villa Noire stood silent over Lake Geneva. Empty, except for a single wing still lit. Inside, mirrors everywhere, no furniture, just reflections of myself from every angle. I walked until I found him, Sebastian Vale, in a black coat, lean, eyes like oil, still and bottomless. You're early, he said, sipping from a glass. I admire that. Rare these days. Why me? Because everyone in this game serves a purpose. Rachel was your temptation. Gideon, your rival. You, your tragedy. I stepped closer. What do you want? He smiled. I already have it, but I'll offer you something. One choice. He reached into a drawer and placed 2 envelopes on the mirrored table. One holds the data dump you're so eager to unleash. Names, videos, files that could take down empires. And the other? Your son's real birth certificate, and the contract that ensured he was born into the game. I froze. What are you saying? Rachel didn't just choose to marry you, she was paid. Your child was conceived under a contract clause, groomed before birth. He leaned in, eyes boring into mine. So ask yourself, Jack, do you burn down the world or save the one piece of it that still loves you? One envelope holds destruction, the other, salvation. But in a world built on lies, what's worth saving? Chapter 1. The Weight of Paper. The two envelopes sat between us like twin serpents, one venomous, one poisonous. Vale said nothing more. He simply waited, watching me with the patience of a man who'd buried kings and bought queens. "Why now?" I asked, fingers twitching toward the files. "Why give me a choice at all?" "Because it amuses me," he said, "and because sometimes you have to give the rat a maze before you burn the lab." I picked up the envelope. On the left, he didn't flinch. Inside, evidence, digital keys, access to a server loaded with videos, voice recordings, contracts. Rachel's voice in one, calmly detailing how she seduced me under Vale's orders. Another showing Gideon discussing leverage over foreign diplomats using hotel cameras. Enough to start wars. Then I opened the second. My heart dropped. A birth certificate, signed by Rachel and not me. The father's name was Richard Voss. My brother, a fertility contract followed, signed by Vale himself. "That's impossible," I murmured. "Rachel lied about the miscarriage," Vale said calmly. "She and your brother tried again while you were on deployment. You never stood a chance." I stood, rage building under my skin. "You son of a—" "Sit. You're in a glass house, Jack." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "You kill me, you never see the boy again." Chapter 2. Lorraine's truth. I ran, out of Villenoir, out of Montreux, into the cold arms of dawn. Lorraine was waiting. She saw my face and knew. "You found the end of the road," she whispered. "No," I said, "I found the beginning." We dug deeper, through Vale's financial channels, Rachel's past aliases, and a man named Richard Voss, my estranged brother, who had gone off-grid. The same year Rachel gave birth, and the trail led to Argentina. Chapter 3. Blood and Mirrors. In a private estate in Mendoza, we found Richard. "You weren't supposed to find me," he said. "Is he mine?" I demanded. "Just tell me." He hesitated. "Biologically? No, but Rachel wanted a child with your name, Jack. It was always about your name. That's what Vale paid for. Your legacy was the currency." I felt the ground drop beneath me. I wasn't just used. I was branded, marketed like a product, a symbol of credibility, honor. Even the child I loved was chosen to look like me, talk like me, without ever being mine. Chapter 4. The fire starter. I returned to Geneva with both envelopes in hand. I didn't choose one. I chose both. With Lorraine's help, we released the files anonymously. Vale's. Empire buckled. Senators fell. Stock markets trembled. Interpol reopened a dozen cases. Gideon, found dead in a hotel pool in Singapore. Suicide, they said, no note. And Rachel, she ran, no trace. Just a final voicemail. "You burned everything, including us. You think you've won. But some ghosts don't stay buried." Chapter 5. The boy months passed, quiet, until a letter arrived. No return address, just a child's drawing, a stick figure labeled Dad, and a photo. My son, our son, smiling at a playground in Oslo, and written on the back in Rachel's handwriting, "He knows your voice. He remembers your stories. But if you chase us, he'll forget." Epilogue. The last hotel. I walk into a nameless bar in Prague now and then. I order whiskey. I wait. Sometimes I get messages in the glass's reflection. Sometimes just silence, but always the question echoes, was it revenge or release? I never chose between the envelopes. I made my own. The third path. The one they never saw coming. And somewhere out there, a boy grows older. His eyes mine, his name mine. But his fate? Still undecided. 5 years have passed. The world's mostly forgotten the chaos from the Veil Files leak. The headlines faded, the corrupt reshuffled. Justice, as usual, came with fine print. But I haven't forgotten. I still get calls in the night. No voice, just static. Sometimes I hear breathing. Once, I swear, I heard a lullaby I used to hum to my son. That's how I knew. Rachel was still alive, and then it came. A dead drop envelope, left in a Geneva locker I hadn't used in years. Inside, a burner phone, a single GPS ping and a note. In Rachel's unmistakable scrawl, "One last game. Bring no one. You owe me that much." Chapter 2. The Widow Protocol. The location: an offshore biotech facility, officially decommissioned. Privately owned by Wither Institute, a company dissolved in 2017 after accusations of illegal identity manipulation and genetic memory research. And guess who signed off on the closing documents? Sebastian Vale. I approached alone, wired up by Lorraine, remotely. She'd begged me not to go. "Jack, if she's alive, she's not the same woman. She's not Rachel anymore." But that was the point. I needed to see what she'd become. Inside the cold, sterile halls, I found her, Rachel, but she looked different, more calculated, more composed, her hair shorter, eyes colder. She wore white, like a surgeon, like a widow. "You came," she said. "You knew I would." She nodded, lips tight. "This isn't about us anymore. It's about what he left behind." I froze. "The boy?" She handed me a file, Project Echo, a child, grown in seclusion, monitored, tested, not mine, not hers, but ours, remade. They had cloned him. Chapter 3. The Ghost Child Turns. Out Vale's real endgame wasn't blackmail or power. It was legacy. He believed a human mind could be made into an empire, rebooted, molded, sold to the highest bidder, and he started with my son. Using neural scans, Rachel's voice recordings, and DNA, he'd built a backup. Not just of the boy, but of us. And now, somewhere in Eastern Europe, a private buyer had taken control of Echo. "Why tell me this?" I asked. "Why now?" Rachel's jaw clenched, her eyes finally cracked. "Because I tried to stop them. I ran. I killed a man to destroy the data, but they rebuilt it, and now they think he's theirs. So what do? We burn the lab. We get him back, and then you disappear. Forever." "We?" I asked. "Just this once," she said. "Not for revenge, not for forgiveness, for the boy." Chapter 4. The facility in the mountains, Lorraine, assembled a Black Ops ghost crew. Ex-operatives, exiles, people with nothing to lose. We hit the Edelweiss compound at midnight, buried in the Carpathians, guarded by former Vale enforcers now, working for a tech conglomerate known only as Virinox. Inside, we found Echo. He looked just like my son at 5, but he didn't speak, just watched, calm, studied, like he was scanning us. Rachel approached him, whispered, "I'm not your mother, but I remember the songs. I remember the nightlight. I remember how you used to hum to yourself before you slept." His eyes widened, just a flicker. Then he whispered back, "You burned the bad man." Chapter 5. The Flame Returns. The escape was chaos, explosives, gunfire, one team member dead, Lorraine shot in the shoulder. But we made it out. Echo slept against Rachel's shoulder the entire flight. No fear. Just peace. And when we landed at a remote safe house in the Azores, I asked Rachel, "What happens now?" She turned toward the window, watching the waves crash. "We raise him differently, quietly. No secrets, no empires. And when he's old, enough. We tell him everything. including the parts that hurt. And after that? Then we let him choose who he wants to become. Epilogue. The final envelope years later, after Rachel vanished again, this time for good, I received one last envelope. No note, just a photo. Echo. Older now, teenager, standing in front of a cracked mirror, wearing my old coat. Rachel's. Locket around his neck, and on the back scribbled in his handwriting, "Dad, who were you before they lied to you?" I didn't have an answer, but I smiled anyway, because finally someone else was asking the right questions. It was a cold, salted wind off the coast that whispered her name. 3 years after the Edelweiss extraction, Rachel was gone again. No note, no call, no sign. Just a memory of her walking into the surf at dusk, Echo's locket left neatly on the sand. But she wasn't dead. Not Rachel. Lorraine and I found the trail in Lisbon. A whisper from a Russian arms dealer. A payment in crypto traced to an off-the-books fixer named Kaspar. Rachel had contacted him. Codename Widow Rook. Kaspar was cagey, but one drink too many in a candle-lit dive bar, and he dropped the phrase, "She's clearing her ledger, one name at a time." "What ledger?" I asked. He just smirked. "The one written in blood. Yours wasn't the only family veil broke." Chapter 2. The names the intel came piece by piece. Burned drives, cryptic coordinates. She was hunting people tied to the vault, an inner circle of Veil loyalists who survived the fall and rebranded under Viranox. Her targets? Mikhail Harrow, surgical mindbender, invented the neural scrubber that erased memories on children, used in testing. Helena Vire, Rachel's former best friend, and the woman who seduced her into the original betrayal. The Chancellor, a faceless executive funding the clone legacy programs. Codename Chimera. Rachel was working through them alone, silent, surgical, and Echo. He'd started asking questions, watching videos, cracking encrypted files Rachel left behind like puzzles designed for his mind alone. One day he came to me trembling, "Dad, I think I found her, but she's not the same anymore. I think she's scared of herself." Chapter 3. Chimera. Protocol, we caught up to Rachel in Berlin, inside an abandoned Cold War data vault turned AI testing site. She'd left bodies behind, silent, peaceful, sleeping like statues. In the deepest chamber, we found her, eyes sunken, fingers trembling, and she didn't flinch when she saw us. "It's done," she whispered. "What is?" I asked. She held out a thin silver drive. "The ledger. Every name, every experiment, every child, they recorded it all, even me. Especially me. Why vanish? Because I was next. Chimera wants me back, not to kill me, to clone me, turn me into a weapon." Her voice broke. "I became too good at being the monster." Chapter 4. Truth-decoded Echo stepped forward. No hesitation. "Then let's rewrite the story." He plugged the drive into his tablet, unlocked layers we couldn't even see, turned the vault's dormant AI against itself. We watched as files bled open, videos of infants crying in steel cribs, neurological remapping of kidnapped refugees, experiments on Rachel herself before she ever met me. She wasn't just a pawn. She was groomed to betray. From the beginning, and Veil had known, had chosen her for it. Chapter 5. The Last Fire. We torched the vault. Every console, every drive, no backups, no servers, just smoke and silence. Rachel stood beside the flames, silhouetted. "What now?" I asked. She smiled for the first time in years. "Now, I get to be no one. And that's finally enough." She kissed Echo's forehead, looked at me one last time. "Raise him well, Jack. Don't let him grow up thinking revenge is the only language worth speaking. And just like that, she walked away into the dawn. Epilogue. The archive years later echoes a man. He teaches digital ethics at a university no one's heard of. Lives simply, quietly. But every year on the anniversary of the Vault Fire, he receives a single white pawn in a black box. No return address. He never opens them. Just lines them up on his shelf, and every time he looks at them, he smiles. Because pawns, when they survive long enough, can become queens. She was 13 the first time they made her choose. 2 cages, 1 rabbit, 1 fox. Only one could eat. The man in the white suit, Dr. Vale, smiled at her when she cried. Empathy is a parasite, Rachel. We're curing you. The place was never called a school, not even a lab. It was simply the orchard, where girls like Rachel were planted, pruned, cultivated, to blossom into weapons. They weren't trained to fight. Not really. They were trained to love, seduce, entrap, destroy from within. They called them widows. Chapter 2. Assignment. Jack Morrison, Rachel's first mission, the one we all thought was fate, was anything but. She was 24. Freshly burned from a fabricated betrayal. Vale's team created her fake identity, down to hospital records and false ex-boyfriends. She was assigned to Jack Morrison, a cybersecurity engineer under surveillance for designing backdoor encryption tools used by rogue states. The mission was simple. Make him fall in love. Marry him. Gain access to the zero key he hides. Deliver it to us before your 3rd anniversary. Then disappear. They gave her 6 months. She fell in love in 6 weeks. The mission should have ended there, but Rachel disobeyed. Chapter 3. Divergence. Rachel sent back a false report, claimed I was clean, useless, a dead end. Then she cut her trackers, blocked the neural pings, and disappeared into suburbia with me. But the Widow program had contingencies. They activated Helena Vire, Rachel's handler and closest friend, and when Helena showed up 3 years later, smiling. At our wedding, with a toast in hand, Rachel knew, they never let you leave, Jack. Not alive. Not with their secrets. Helena's wedding gift? A photograph. Rachel, asleep. A drive in her hand. Me unconscious beside her. Clock's ticking, sweetheart, the note read. Deliver the key, or we burn him down. Chapter 4. The lie. Of love, that was the night Rachel cracked. The affair, the hotel, the guilt she weaponized to push me away. She wasn't cheating for lust or betrayal. She was protecting me the only way she'd been taught, by making me hate her. The hotel rendezvous? It was with Helena. A final warning. A final threat. And when Rachel realized Helena had begun grooming our son from a distance, she snapped. She went rogue, not to run, but to destroy the program that made her this way. Chapter 5. Red Ledger, Black Blood In. A decrypted flash drive Echo would one day find, Rachel recorded a single message. I loved him. And that broke me, because I was never meant to love anyone. They trained me to destroy homes, not build one. So if I vanish, know it was the only way to kill the ghost they turned me into, and she ends with a whisper. Tell, Jack, I never lied when I said forever, only that I didn't know what forever looked like. Epilogue. The last widow. The orchard was destroyed. A fire, gas leak, or maybe someone inside rigged it. They say no one made it out, but Echo sometimes wonders. He finds notes in old books, codes in songs on the radio, and on his 21st birthday, he receives a single black envelope. Inside, a photo of a woman in her 40s, a plane ticket to Tokyo, and a note in code he breaks in seconds. The widows are gone, but Chimera has daughters. Come find me, Echo. The world still needs unmaking. Bloodlines don't die. They evolve. Chapter 1. Tokyo, 2:13 a.m. The rain was warm. Echo stepped off the plane with a duffel bag, a burner phone, and the photo of a woman he didn't recognize until he looked closer. The eyes. His mother's eyes, but older, harder, wearing a scar from temple to cheek like a stitched signature. Her name was Jun, codename Kitsune, Rachel's sister, genetically spliced from the same donor material. They weren't born, they were architected. Jun didn't greet him at the airport. Instead, she left a trail of numbers through abandoned Shinjuku arcades and encrypted vending machines. Each clue a puzzle Rachel knew only her son could solve. When Echo finally reached her, it was in an old pagoda beneath the city, wrapped in glowing servers and whispering fans. She didn't smile. Welcome to the afterlife, Echo. The widows are dead, but the daughters, they're just waking up. Chapter 2. The Daughters. Protocol. After. Rachel went rogue and burned the widow program. The last of Chimera's scientists went silent. For years. But they weren't idle. They began. A new project, quiet, clean, no training, no violence. Just genetic perfection, bred from the original widow line and grown in underground birthing labs across continents. Jun was the first. There were 12 in total. They called them the Daughters of Chimera, engineered to mimic brilliance, seduction and loyalty, but designed with absolute obedience. Until something went wrong. One of them escaped, Echo, Jun said. She has no name, no face, but she's hunting the others, and when she finds them, she rewrites them, like malware with a soul. What do you mean, rewrites? He asked. Jun turned her monitor. A video flickered on. A woman staring into a mirror, whispering Rachel's words from years ago, word for word. They made me a monster, but I chose to love. Chapter 3. The Ghost Clone. The Rogue Daughter. Was a ghost, code-named Nira. She moved like vapor, slipping into lives, reactivating suppressed memories in her sisters, and undoing years of programming. One by one, the daughters began defecting. Not just leaving, but remembering. Rachel wasn't just a mother. She was a virus in their code. Her rebellion became contagious. And Nira? She wasn't created by Chimera. She was a backup. Rachel's mind, her personality, her memories, her soul, copied from stolen neural maps and grown in an illegal clone embryo, Rachel's ghost, walking in a body that had never been hers. Chapter 4. Echo's Choice. Jun handed Echo a drive. This holds the last map, the hidden location of Chimera's new cradle where the next generation is gestating. You can destroy it or rewrite it, program them differently, create a generation of widows that heal instead of kill, but Echo hesitated. What if I'm just playing God with a different face? Jun didn't answer. She placed a key in his hand. Rachel believed in you, even after everything. So do I. Just remember, Nira believes she is Rachel. And if she finds the cradle first, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. Chapter 5. Echoes of Jericho found Nira in the Swiss Alps, standing at the threshold of the cradle, hands raised, guards unconscious around her. She looked just like Rachel on their last night together. Same voice, same tremble when she said, "You're him, my son," or at least, hers. Do you remember what she taught us? Echo lowered his weapon. She taught me to question love when it hurts. but never to stop choosing it. Naira's eyes shimmered. Then she stepped aside. Then let's raise them together. The next daughters, the next chapter. This time, not as weapons, but as hope. Epilogue. The hotel, rebuilt years later, the old secret hotel was rebuilt. Not as a brothel, not a bunker, but a haven, a school for the daughters. No cages, no foxes, no cruel men in white suits. And at the front gate hung a plaque with a single name, Rachel. A man who never leaves shadows doesn't fear the light. Cyril Norin, Chimera's final director, had evaded death for over 2 decades. His fingerprints were never found, his voice never recorded. He operated behind the scenes, manipulating the world as if it were a chessboard, and he the sole player. But even the darkest mind has its cracks, its moments of human fragility. He knew about the daughters. He'd designed them. But he didn't understand them. Not like Rachel had. Rachel was the revolution. She was the crack in his perfect world. Echo had never met Norin in person. Not until he arrived at a small estate in the French countryside, hidden beneath layers of false identities and decoy properties. The mansion was untouched by time, but as Echo crossed its threshold, a strange sense of dread settled over him. Something was different here, something alive. The mansion's walls were lined with monitors, humming softly in the background, a far cry from the sleek, sterile environments he had grown accustomed to. Norin appeared from the shadows, his voice, calm, even friendly. "So you're the son who would undo everything, the boy who broke the code and fell in love." Echo's hand tightened around the gun he had slipped into his coat. "I'm not here to play games, Norin. I'm here to finish what Rachel started." Norin smiled, a small, knowing smile. "You don't understand, do you? She was never the threat. The daughters? They're merely pawns in a much larger game. You, Echo, you're the true target." As Norin led Echo through the mansion, he revealed secrets buried deep within Chimera's archives, secrets even Echo had never known. Rachel didn't just rebel against Chimera, Echo. She was the first test, the perfect failure, the original. Widow wasn't meant to be a weapon at all. She was a sacrifice. Echo's world tilted. His mother had been created to be broken, to fail. But that failure had brought something unexpected. Rachel, in all her defiance, had something none of my creations had: love. Real, untainted, chaotic love, and it twisted everything, including her. Norin's eyes gleamed as if he were speaking of a beloved object. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Rachel loved you, Echo. That's why she couldn't destroy you, even when it cost her everything. It was a trap." The moment Echo stepped into the room, the doors slammed shut, locking him inside. The monitors flickered to life, displaying his mother's face, but not the mother he knew. This was the cold, calculating face of the widow he had never met. Norin's voice rang in his ear. "You see, Echo, I never wanted you dead. Not really. You were always the wild card. You were never meant to be a soldier or a pawn. You were meant to rewrite the game, to become the new face of Chimera." Echo froze. The realization hit harder than any blow. "What are you talking about?" he whispered. Norin chuckled, a sound like rustling leaves in autumn. "You think Rachel was the only one to break the program? No. You're the true heir, Echo. The one who will surpass all of them." Norin revealed the truth behind the daughters' rebellion. It wasn't Rachel or even Naira that had started the revolution. It was Echo himself. Unwittingly, as a child, he had been the one to break the genetic coding that bound them all. The daughters, each genetically linked to him, carried the code of Rachel's love deep inside them. And with his birth, that code began to unravel, driving them to the very rebellion that had now spiraled beyond Chimera's control. But now, Norin had one final test. The daughters are not a problem. You are. Your legacy, your bloodline, your existence. He reached for a button hidden beneath the table and pressed it. The walls of the room shifted, revealing a massive machine, its tendrils covered in tubes and wires. You were never meant to be free, Echo. You were meant to become a part of something bigger, a new beginning for Chimera. Will you join me and finish what Rachel started? Or will you be like the rest of them, the failed sons of failure? Chapter 6. The choice Echo stood in front of the machine, his fingers brushing the surface of the cold glass. He could see his reflection, his eyes, Rachel's eyes, staring back at him. He had been used, manipulated. Every step, every betrayal, every loss, it had all been part of the plan. But there was one thing Norin had never counted on. Echo had his mother's heart, and it beat for freedom. With one final move, Echo reached for the detonator hidden in his jacket. I'm not your heir, Norin. I'm the end of your line. Epilogue. The final silence. The explosion rocked the mansion, shaking the earth beneath it. Echo emerged from the wreckage, his face grim but resolute. Chimera was no more. But the daughters were still out there. Some still loyal to the cause. Some now free. And as Echo disappeared into the shadows, he knew the real war had only just begun. And there it is, the story of the widows, the daughters, and the legacy of love and betrayal. The explosion had shattered the heart of Chimera's operations, but it hadn't killed the idea. It hadn't killed the sisters, the daughters, born from the twisted legacy of Rachel and Echo. Echo knew the war wasn't over. Not for him. Not for them. The remaining daughters scattered. Some vanished into the underground world seeking safety. Some, enraged by their loss, went after Norin's shadow empire, determined to finish what had been started. A few, like Naira, chose to rebuild from the ashes, attempting to create a new order in the wake of destruction. But others? They were still loyal to the old guard, the ones who hadn't been freed by Rachel's rebellion. Chapter 2. The Hunt. Begins Echo. Sat in a darkened room, the low hum of his burner phone vibrating against the table. He had thought he was done. Thought he could walk away from this tangled web of bloodlines, deception, and betrayal. But it never worked that way. Naira had reached out. Her message was brief, but it was enough to draw him back in. The last one is still out there, Echo. The one we couldn't find. She's hunting us. Echo's heart skipped a beat. There was another daughter? Another who hadn't chosen freedom? He couldn't ignore it. Not now. Chapter 3. Into the Lion's Den. Following Nira's lead, Echo made his way to Berlin, where the last daughter, Isolde, had hidden herself in the darkest corners of the criminal underworld. She had become a ghost, vanishing without a trace, leaving only whispered rumors and vague sightings. Naira was waiting for him in an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Her face was hard, her eyes tired, but she hadn't lost the fire that had driven her to fight Chimera in the first place. I didn't want to bring you back into this, Echo, she said, eyes scanning the horizon. But she's dangerous. More dangerous than we ever thought. She's been changing, becoming something else. Echo felt the weight of her words. He had never liked the idea of hunting down family, let alone the last remnants of Chimera's experiments. But Naira was right. If Isolde was as dangerous as she claimed, then it wasn't just a matter of stopping one rogue agent. It was about stopping a war from being reignited. So, what's the plan? Echo asked, his voice steady, despite the tension coiling in his chest. We find her first, Naira said, her jaw set in determination, before she finds us. Chapter 4. A Daughter's Wrath Berlin was a city built on secrets, and Isolde had made a life of them. She was connected to every criminal syndicate, every shadowy organization, using her abilities to manipulate, seduce, and control those who could keep her hidden. But Isolde wasn't like Nira or Echo. She had chosen to stay in the darkness, feeding off it, becoming stronger with each passing year. Her face was the same as Rachel's, but colder, hardened by years of survival, of being alone. "You've come to kill me, Echo?" Isolde's voice echoed from the shadows. Her figure appeared from behind a stack of crates, her eyes glowing like the embers of a long-forgotten fire. "I always knew you'd come. You always thought you were different. But we are all the same. Products of them all." Echo's hand went to the gun at his side, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. "I'm not here to kill you, Isolde. I'm here to stop this madness, to stop Chimera from coming back." Isolde's lips curled into a sly smile. "You think you can stop anything? We were never meant to be free. We were meant to rule." Her voice grew cold, and in her eyes flickered a twisted kind of hope. "And you are the key to it all. Don't you see? You were the mistake, Echo, the failure, and now you are the cure." Chapter 5. The Battle. Within. The tension between them was palpable, like the storm before a fight. Nira stood to the side, her hand clenched into a fist, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to take a side. Was Echo truly prepared to do what it took to stop the daughters from destroying themselves? Or would he fall into the same trap that had consumed Rachel? Isolde was a part of the past, but so was he. They shared blood, shared pain, shared memories. "You were supposed to be the one to lead us," Isolde whispered, a strange sadness in her voice. "But you turned your back on us. And now you want to kill us for the very thing we were born to do." Echo's heart twisted. Was she right? Had he betrayed his own bloodline? Was his fight for freedom really just another form of running from the truth? "I never wanted to lead," Echo said, his voice breaking through the silence. "I just wanted to survive." Chapter 6. The Reckoning. But survival wasn't enough. Isolde's hand moved faster than Echo could react, a blade flashing. In the low light, she lunged, the gleam of steel cutting through the air with a fury born from years of bitterness. But Nira moved with equal speed, intercepting the attack before it could reach Echo's chest. The two women collided, their bodies a blur of motion, each fighting not just for their own survival, but for their own vision of the future. They fought like daughters of Chimera, like the soldiers they were born to be. In the chaos of the battle, Echo saw a moment of clarity. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for something bigger than all of them. "Stop!" Echo shouted. His voice rang out, cutting through the sound of metal and bone. The fighting halted. "We don't have to keep killing each other," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We were never meant to be weapons. We were meant to be human." For a long moment, Isolde's eyes locked onto his, and Echo saw something in her gaze. A flicker of doubt, a question she hadn't been willing to face. Maybe it's not too late," she whispered. And just like that, the war between the daughters came to an uncertain end. Epilogue. The dawn of a new generation Isolde didn't surrender. She chose to walk away, like Rachel Beth. Isolde stood at the edge of a crumbling tower, looking down at the city she had once wanted to conquer. Now, it was nothing but a sprawling mass of shadows, echoes of old ambitions that no longer mattered. She had turned her back on the past, the legacy of Chimera that had driven her and her sisters to madness. But could anyone truly escape the past? Could she? The wind swept through her hair, the cold air biting at her skin, as if it were trying to purge her of her sins. She had once thought she was destined to rule, but now she wasn't so sure. She had killed, manipulated, and destroyed in the name of an ideal that had turned hollow. The question lingered. Could she rebuild herself? From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Nira. Her face was weary, but there was a quiet sense of resolve in her eyes. She had watched Isolde for years, always wary, always ready for the moment when her former sister would snap, when she would return to the darkness. "It's over, Isolde," Nira said, her voice softer than before, as though she had let go of the anger that once simmered between them. "We don't have to be what Chimera made us. You don't have to be that person anymore." Isolde turned to face her, her face hardening for a moment. But it softened just as quickly, her eyes betraying the vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. "Can I really be someone else, Nira? After everything we've done?" Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Isolde didn't try to hide it. Nira's expression softened. "Maybe, maybe not. But we can try. Together." Isolde stood there contemplating her words. She had run from herself for so long, hiding behind a mask of power and fear, but now there was a chance to leave all of it behind. Could she take that step? Could she ever truly be free? For the first time, the future seemed uncertain but full of possibility. Chapter 8. Echo's burden back in Berlin. Echo was alone, staring at the map of the city laid out before him. The past few days had been a blur. The confrontation with Isolde had ended, but the fallout was far from over. The remnants of Chimera's operation still lingered, scattered across the globe like broken glass, dangerous, sharp, and ready to cut anyone who dared to touch it. But what about him? What did he want now? He hadn't come to Berlin to fight Chimera's legacy, but it seemed that the fight had found him anyway. He had hoped to walk away, to live a quiet life, perhaps even to try and build something new with Nira. But it was clear that the past wasn't finished with him. It was never finished with any of them. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. A message from Nira. "Isolde's made her choice. I think she's done with the fight. But there's more out there, Echo. Chimera's dead, but its ideals still live on. And some people won't let go." Echo read the message again, the weight of it settling over him like a heavy fog. He had hoped that by confronting Isolde the war would end, that they could finally leave the bloodshed behind. But Nira was right. The world didn't work that way. Some battles were never truly over. Chapter 9. The Last Daughter's 2 Weeks. Later, Echo found himself once again standing at the crossroads. The remnants of Chimera had scattered, yes, but there were whispers, rumors of the last surviving daughter still out there, hiding in the dark corners of the world. But there was another twist to the story. Isolde wasn't the last. There were others still, their presence hidden beneath layers of false identities and shadows. As much as he wanted to believe that Chimera's downfall was final, deep down, Echo knew better. There was always another layer to peel back, always another secret waiting to be uncovered. His eyes were drawn back to the phone. Nira had sent him another message. "We need to find them. We can't let this keep going. It's not just Chimera anymore, Echo. It's the legacy they've created. And it's bigger than all of us." Echo stood up, his mind racing. Was he ready to go back into that world? The world he had left behind, the one that had nearly consumed him? He wasn't sure. But there was one thing he knew for certain. If anyone was going to put an end to this madness, it would be him. Chapter 11. Shadows of the Pasteco sat in the small, dimly lit office, the weight of the world pressing against him once more. The remnants of Chimera were far from forgotten, and the people who had once been part of the Shadow organization continued to haunt him, lurking in the corners of his mind. He had tried to distance himself from it all, to lead a life of quiet peace, but it was impossible. The world didn't let you escape so easily. Not when you had lived a life that had carved its mark so deep into the fabric of who you were. The phone on the desk buzzed again. Another message from Neera. "I've found something. It's not over. The others, they're still out there. We need to move quickly." Echo stared at the screen, his heart sinking as the weight of the message hit him. He had hoped naively that the end of Chimera had meant the end of the fight, that he could rest, could finally put down the burden that had been his entire life. But Neera was right. There was no peace for people like them. The world they had inhabited was far too dangerous, far too broken to just walk away from. He stood up, running his hand through his hair. The decision was clear. He had to go back in. There was no other choice. Chapter 12. The return to the dark Neera met Echo in a small, nondescript cafe on the outskirts of Berlin. It was a quiet place, almost too quiet, as though the shadows themselves were listening to their conversation. Echo had always trusted Neera, even when their paths had diverged, even when their motivations had been unclear. She was still the only person who understood the cost of their shared history. As they sat down, she placed a file on the table between them, her eyes not meeting his. "You were right to walk away, Echo," Neera said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of regrets too heavy to voice. "But the war isn't over. It's only just begun." Echo studied her for a moment before flipping open the file. The first page was a map with locations marked in red: Berlin, Moscow, Istanbul, and Paris. Underneath there were names, old names, some familiar, some not. "Who are they?" Echo asked, his fingers tracing the names. Some were old allies of Chimera, others were unknown to him. Neera's eyes darkened as she answered, her voice low and dangerous. "They're the remnants. The survivors who slipped through the cracks when Chimera fell, the ones who still believe in the ideology. They've reformed into something new, something more dangerous, and they're recruiting." Echo felt a chill run down his spine. The past, which he had fought so hard to escape, was pulling him back in, and it wasn't just a shadow this time. It was real, tangible, and threatening. "We can't let them rebuild. We have to stop them before they get any stronger," he said, determination hardening his voice. Neera nodded grimly, her expression matching his resolve. "We're going to need help, and we're going to need to move fast." Chapter 13. The First Strike. They moved swiftly, operating under the cover of darkness as they tracked down the key members of this new organization. Each lead brought them closer to understanding the true scale of what they were up against. These weren't just people who had escaped Chimera's downfall. They were people who had learned from its mistakes and adapted, shaping a new vision, one that was even more dangerous than before. In Moscow, they found the first piece of the puzzle. A former Chimera operative named Victor, known for his ruthlessness and ability to infiltrate governments. He was the architect of the new network, the one who was piecing together the remnants of Chimera's operations and building something more covert. Victor had to be stopped, and he would be their first target. Chapter 14. A Ghost from the Past. Their plan was simple: get close to Victor, gather intelligence, and then eliminate him. But as they closed in on their target, something unexpected happened. A familiar face appeared from the shadows. Isolde, Echo, froze as he saw her standing across the room, watching them, her eyes calculating and cold. "Isolde?" he whispered, a sense of disbelief filling his voice. Isolde didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward, her presence as commanding as ever. There was no hesitation in her movements, no sign of the vulnerability that had marked their last encounter. "I knew you'd come for me, Echo," she said softly. "But I didn't think you'd be so naive." Neera stiffened beside him, her hand hovering near the weapon at her side. But Echo held her back, his eyes never leaving Isolde. "You're working with them now?" Echo asked, the weight of betrayal hanging in the air. Isolde smirked, her eyes filled with the same calculating gaze that had once burned with ambition. "You think I could walk away from everything Chimera built? From the power it gave us?" "No, Echo. I've embraced it. I've learned from the mistakes of the past. I'm not just fighting for survival anymore. I'm fighting for something greater." Her words stung. The woman he had once cared for, who he had hoped would change, was still the same, caught in the web of ambition and power that had once ensnared them both. "You can't win, Isolde," Naira said, her voice cold. "The world has changed. Chimera is dead, and you're just chasing shadows." Isolde's smile faded as she met Naira's gaze, her expression unreadable. For a moment, silence hung between them, thick and heavy. "Maybe," Isolde said, her voice now lower, almost a whisper. "But sometimes shadows are all that's left to follow." With that, she turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Echo and Naira standing there, both uncertain of what the future held. Chapter 15. A New War. The game had changed. Isolde was no longer the ally she had once been, and now, as Echo and Naira hunted down Victor and his network, they realized they were not just fighting against a scattered group of individuals. They were fighting against a new ideology, one that was just as dangerous as the L.